You can crush any low stakes poker game by fixing these 5 critical mistakes. I have been a winning pro for 7 straight years by removing them from my game. In this video, I am going to break down each mistake and the corrections you will make so you can become a stronger player and start winning more money right away. Take a 1-3 game where you're sitting with $350. Early position limps, middle position limps, and you are in cutoff with King 10 offsuit. A lot of players over limp because they do not want to miss a flop, or they raise because the hand feels too nice to fold. The button calls, the small blind calls, one limper calls, and suddenly you are 4 ways to a flop of King 8-3 with a flush draw. Top pair looks fine for a second, then the small blind leads, the limper calls, and you were stuck in the kind of pot you created before the flop even came. You are playing pre-flop without a real plan. The issue is not just whether the cards look decent, it is whether the hand is likely to play well once more money goes in, or whether you already know what you are supposed to do if the pot gets bigger. Early position, the blinds, and limp-heavy games are where people get careless. Seeing a cheap flop sounds harmless until you make second pair in a crowded pot and start guessing. You need to tighten up when you are out of position and stop entering just because the table looks soft. Enter when the hand and the position you are in work together. Regulars will notice these key mistakes very fast. If you keep limping too much, flatting too wide, and landing in messy pots with no clear idea, good players can pick you apart right away. Pre-flop is the setup for everything that comes after. A lot of post-flop trouble starts with a pre-flop choice that should have never been made. If pre-flop is hard for you, something that is easy is scanning this QR code to get the low-stakes poker blueprint. It gives you the 100 rules I used to win for 7 straight years. You can also receive it by clicking the pinned comment in this video. At low stakes, this leak hides behind a fake version of discipline. Players say they are bluff catching, the line does not add up, or they just need one more piece of information. What is really happening is simpler than that. You do not want to be the guy who folded the winner, so you pay to avoid that feeling. The second mistake is calling too much with one pair. Say you open ace-queen from hijack in a 2-5 game to $15, and the big blind calls. Both of you have around $600. The flop comes ace-8-4 rainbow. Villain checks, you c-bet $15 into the pot, and they call. The turn is the 9 of clubs, bringing in the backdoor flush draw. They check, you bet $70, and they call again. The river is the 6 of clubs, and now they donk lead the size of the pot. A lot of money gets burned right here. Top pair, top kicker looks strong, so people talk themselves into one more call. The better question is simple. What are you actually beating? In low stakes live games, a lot of players are not betting big with missed draws on the river. More often, they saw it with 2 pair, a set that slow played, or a flush that now wants value. The real leak is wanting certainty before letting go. You want to see the bluff and want the hand to make sense in a way that feels clean. Poker does not pay for emotional closure. It pays for the best decision with the information on the table right now. Hero folding matters a lot more than most people admit. If you keep calling because a hand feels too strong to fold, you will keep handing money over in the exact spots where better players quietly save it. The fix is not fair, but rather honesty about who bluffs in your game and who mostly turns up with a made hand. Once you stop mixing up curiosity with discipline, these river spots get a lot easier. One ugly hand can flip the whole session if you let it with this next mistake. The cards are still the same, but you stop playing the table and start playing the feeling. Say you get stacked with kings against aces in a 1-3 game. This is a hand that pretty much played itself, and you would have stacked your opponent if you instead had aces and they had kings. This is a cooler and nothing dramatic. The problem starts on the next orbit. You open Jack-8 suited from under the gun because you want action. A loose defend from the big blind suddenly feels acceptable because you were priced in. Then you float a flop you would normally just fold because you want to push somebody around and get something back. The mistake is having one hand lead to revenge poker. It is not always loud. Sometimes it just means your ranges creep wider, your patience gets shorter, and ordinary spots start looking like chances to make up ground. The loss from the first hand is not what wrecks the session. Dragging that loss into the next decision and the one after that is what does it. Once your ego gets involved, you stop reading hands and ranges with a clear mind and start forcing the action. Winning players have the ability to reset fast. They do not try to repair the last pot with the next one. Here's another version of this leak that shows up all the time. You are down a buy-in and every pot starts feeling like a chance to recover. An open raise feels bigger, a thin bluff feels more tempting, getting back to even starts sounding important. This is still the same problem, and you must realize the money from the earlier pot is gone. When the session turns into a comeback story, the decisions get sloppy. You can even hear it in the way players talk. I just need one double up or I need to take this spot. None of that is poker logic. That is emotion trying to dress itself up as a strategy. Once you hear yourself talking like that, a break is needed to fully reset the mind and body. Having a good strategy at the poker tables will help you avoid playing this way. To learn the strategies I use to win for 7 straight years, you should grab my free guide, The Low Stakes Poker Blueprint. You can receive it by scanning this QR code or clicking the pinned comment. A little theory can make people dangerous in the wrong way. They know enough to sound technical, then sit in a live game and ignore the actual tendencies in front of them. Low stakes is not random. It is full of patterns where some players call too much, underbluff badly, and hate folding top pair. Others stab too often when they think you missed a flop. If you do not short those groups correctly, your value bets, your bluffs, and your sizing all drift in the wrong direction. The next mistake is not profiling the players in your pool correctly. Take a 1-3 game where you raise ace-jack offsuit on the button to $10 and the big blind calls. The flop comes ace-10-5 with 2 spades. Big blind checks, you bet 66% of the pot and they call. The turn is the 3 of diamonds and big blind checks again. A lot of low stakes players bet too small here because they do not want to scare action away. Against the average live caller, that leaves money behind. A bunch of worse hands will call, including a pair of aces, jack X, flush draws, and pair plus flush draws. If you keep betting like the hand is fragile just because it is one pair, you are leaving a lot of money on the table. Flip the spot and the same mistake shows up on the river. You see bet the flop, barrel turn, the river breaks, and suddenly people decide they need to sell a big story. The problem is that the player across from you may not care about your story. He may call second pair because he hates folding. So why would we bluff here? You need to keep track of what the players in your pool are doing. Reading the room makes the game easier. Value bet the players who pay and bluff the ones who can let go. You can also put more pressure on regulars when the spot supports it. Most of the money at low stakes comes from accepting what the table is. Once you stop pretending every player is thinking on the same level, a lot of these decisions become simpler and more profitable. This next mistake starts out when a lot of players sit down with no warm-up routine and no idea what kind of headspace they are bringing into the game. Then they act surprised when the decisions get worse as the night goes on. Picture the usual session where you show up tired, nothing was reviewed before you got there, and there's no reminder of the mistakes you keep making. An early bad beat lands, the room gets louder, the pots start feeling bigger, and your attention slips. A loose defend feels okay because folding feels weak. A thin call feels okay because letting go feels uncomfortable. Value bets get smaller because the money starts feeling heavier than it should. This is having no session discipline. Session discipline is the structure you need to bring in before the first card was dealt. If you were tired, distracted, attached to the money, hungry, bored, or already thinking about when you can leave, your edge is shrinking before anything interesting happens. That is why so many players call everything a downswing. The issue is not the deck of cards, but rather themselves. Good session discipline does not need to be complicated. Try to take 10 to 15 minutes before you play to remind yourself what you need to improve and focus on. Poker punishes minds that are not locked in and are drifting. This leads to one lazy pre-flop call at a time, one stubborn river call, and one spot where you know you should slow down, but don't. 3 hours later, it feels like the cards beat you up when the truth is your process failed first. The process to playing like a winning pro is in this next video. Make sure you watch it to become a much better player today.